What is going on, guys? It's Levi here with Sue Automotive, and in today's video we are going to be installing the angle kit from Part Shop Max onto the FC. And in this beginning of the video I'm going to show you the starting angle, and then at the end I will show you the ending angle. I will also let you know what problems I ran into, mainly towards the end. It's the reason why this video is so long. So yeah, stay tuned. As you can see, the angle's not that great. They're not bad to turn in, but they do not have that great of a turning radius. So the first step after removing your wheels is to remove the brake caliper. So we pull out the slides, pull out the brake pads, and then into the caliper itself. If you haven't watched my brake install video, I'll leave either a link in the description below for it, or I'll put it up at the top right hand corner of the screen. Next, it's time to remove the hub. And in order to remove the hub, you just pop this cap off, and then you'll have a cotter pin and a nut. Just back that nut off, and you'll be able to pull the whole hub assembly with the wheel bearings out. Now that the hub's off, it's time to remove the backing plate. Now that it's done and the hub is off, it's now time to pull out the backing plate. Backing plate is a 12mm socket, as you just saw. I believe it's either 3 or 4 screws, and the backing plate comes off. Now it's time to take off the spindle itself. So we're going to have to detach the coilover from the spindle, and we are going to have to detach the tie rod end, and then also the lower ball joint. That was a 14mm. That is for the nut that bolts the ball joint to the spindle. And there we go. Now the spindle is off. To be fair, that was probably the hardest part of the entire job, was getting the lower ball joint to separate from the knuckle. Now, what I do recommend is you have newer lower ball joints. This kit will only allow you to use the S4 series lower ball joints, and I didn't at the time think it was going to be a big deal, so I didn't actually go and get new ones. But now that I think about it, in hindsight, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and change it, since you have to take it completely off anyways. Now it's time to separate the sway bar link from the sway bar, so the lower control arm and all that can come out as one piece. time to take the lower control arm out to replace it with the new one. Been a while since I did record this video, and I don't remember if those bolts are a 14 or a 13. But that's for the back bushings of the lower control arm. The fronts, if I'm not mistaken, are 18s. You just unscrew it. It's a bolt and it comes right out. Now it's time to separate the tie rod from the rack so we can install the tie rod spacers that come with the kit. They allow for more, they allow for the tie rods to reach the new spindle because it is located further out. So it does allow you to get your tie rod to the spindle, and then of course it also allows for more tie rod travel from the rack. Now it's time to put the new lower control arm back on. The new lower control arm has spherical bearings, so you don't have to worry about any binding or anything like that when it comes to like your typical rubber bushing and you having to adjust it at right height. You can literally just put this on and move it to where you need it to move, and it will adjust with no issues, no suspension bind whatsoever. One of the cool things about this kit is it does come with sway bar end links. They are adjustable. Not only are they adjustable, but they are also Heim joint, so you don't have to worry about bushing flex or anything like that either. They also come with adjustable bump stops too. So if for some reason you want to adjust your uh, travel of your angle, you can adjust your bump stops so that way that your travel is limited to whatever you'd like. Now I'm using thread locker, but chances are you probably really don't need this. It's just an extra added layer of protection that I felt was necessary. I don't think you can see it really good in the video, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is a 24 for the rear spherical bearing to connect everything together. We're now putting back on the S4's lower ball joints that originally were taken off. Like I said before, the S4 lower ball joints are the only ball joints that you can use according to Part Shop Max. Apparently the S5 ball joints are a little bit different, so you will need to pick up a pair of S4 ball joints if you don't have some already. Word of advice, always remember this in life. Lick it before you stick it. Lube is your friend. Alright, so unfortunately my camera died, and I ended up having to put it on the charger, so you're not going to be able to see what happened over there on that side. But I didn't adjust the sway bar link the way I thought it was going to fit. I had it too short, so I had to lengthen it a little bit in order to get everything to fit together. Recommendation is get the shock put on, or coilover put on, to the spindle, and then adjust your sway bar link from there. You can always adjust it once everything's hooked up if you feel you need a tighter body roll. Another issue that I ran across, and I really wouldn't call it an issue, is the backing plate will not fit on the new spindle. There's no provision for it whatsoever. Also, heads up, when you do put this angle kit on, it does change the angle and geometry of your suspension. I made the mistake of, while I had it off, I adjusted the coilovers to make them a little bit shorter. That is a no-no. Do not do that. Learn from my mistake, and you'll see what the end result is. I actually lowered the suspension while I had it up in the air because I felt like the ride height was just a tad bit, you know, I figured I could go a little bit lower. And by doing that, and then also the angle kit changing the way the ride height is as well, it was too low, and it caused me to rub up against the fender and damage it. The good thing is I have plans for that in the future, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but it is somewhat of a headache, especially if you want to keep your fenders. And the issue that I had here that I struggled with for a good while was the Loctite that I had placed on the set screws for the rotors. One of them came out fine, and the other one, I'm assuming just because of old age, decided it was going to implode on me. So I had to take a chisel and hammer and slowly chisel away at it until I was finally able to get it to where I could loosen it up. And so yeah, but that took a big old chunk of time out. Another thing you guys didn't see is you didn't see me putting the grease on back on the spindle. You want to put a lot. You want to put a lot. The more is better, because the last thing you want to do is not have enough grease, and then you burn up your wheel bearings. So I also recommend getting another like a grease packing tool and packing your bearings that way. I did have one and I did use them, but I also put an abundance of grease along the spindle as well, because when I had taken it off, you could clearly see that there was a bunch on there. So I went ahead and did that. I personally used, because since I do work for a dealer, I had some Mercedes-Benz wheel bearing grease that I used, but you can pretty much use anything that's that same quality of you putting it on. And this right here is why you don't adjust anything before everything's put back together. Because now the fender is pretty much destroyed. I'm trying to slowly bend it up, but it's not going to work. Just a heads up. And it's the next morning. The problem that I had was I was gonna actually just try and drive it home, and what ended up happening is since I lowered the suspension too much, the wheels were contacting the fender. No matter what I did, they would contact the fender. Especially more often when I was turning, it would just instantly hit it and try and rip off the fender. And I didn't want it to do any of that, because I was trying to save the fenders, but I ended up having to cut a little piece off the driver's side. But the main issue was I thought I could drive it home even with the alignment not done, and just in the parking lot it was screeching really, really loud because my toe was just so bad. So I ended up having to bring it back in here, adjust the suspension, and then going in and aligning it a little bit later, and you'll see that in a minute. that right there was me just cutting off all the damaged part, so that way I didn't have to worry about it contacting with the lid. And here we are on the alignment rack. What I didn't account for, having a low ride height, was the fact that I'd have to use the universal sensors. And the way the universal sensors mount is a little bit different than the way the manufacturer sensors mount. So I kind of ran into a little bit of an issue with the fenders contacting the sensor itself. Now, when I had it up on the rack earlier, I knew that my toe was going to be off quite a bit. So what I did was I just kind of eyeballed it to get me to a relatively more like zero toe-esque. That way I didn't have to adjust too much on the rack. It was a little bit more beneficial. I didn't have to worry about scrubbing the tires and making lots of noise. That's Aaron, by the way. Everybody say hi to Aaron. Alright, so right here I'm adjusting the rear toe. And now we're adjusting the front toe. Alright, alignment is all done. It is now time to remove all the sensors, back it back out, and show you guys the end result of all this labor. Alright, here we are. This is the end result of the angle kit. We do have a little bit more angle. I am hitting on some stuff, so I do bottom out. That I will adjust later, but we do have quite a bit more angle. So, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you already haven't. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And please look forward to the next video. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.